So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much and welcome to yet another presentation in the series of our webinar at the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. Today we are going to have another exciting presentation, and I'm sure most of us will learn. And as usual, we are going to tell you a brief about our center, just for 1 or 2 minutes. Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, which is a center that was established in February 2020 by the immediate past Vice Chancellor of National Open University of Nigeria. Let me start by even telling you that our Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, is very, very interested in this topic, but he has a very tight schedule today and has promised that he will follow up. So he sends his greetings. And I am Gloria Neto, the director of the center, who is also standing in for the Vice Chancellor. So our center, like I was trying to say, was established in 2020 by the immediate past Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor Abdallah Adamu, under the seed fund by TED Fund. Now the center is 3 years old, and we have been mandated to provide sustainable leverage for interdisciplinary research in migration and global studies, and also to serve as an agent of national and global policy in migration studies, and seek grants for academic activities and outreach, organize short courses, seminars, conferences, and public lectures. And of course, that is one of the things we are trying to meet here, and hoping that we'll get sponsorship soon to organize a conference before this year runs out. And we also are to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monographs in the field, which we're also doing. We have our journal website. We have a website for this center, as well as a journal website. And we're actually on our 3rd volume in publishing journals. So you can do well to ask for a hard copy, and then you can also go online to look at what we have. And it's a highly peer-reviewed journal, international journal, and it is full of very, very informative articles. And we also execute, we are supposed to also execute all memoranda of understanding with partners and all those we are still working on. So today, without much waste of time, I can see that not many people are online, so there must have been so many activities, here and there. But with our site on the internet, YouTube link, all those you can follow up. You may not actually miss much completely. Today, let me go to the presenter of today. This is a very special person to me because she's a friend and a sister. And I must say that I'm very excited to have before us today Dr. Esirogene Adego, who is our presenter for today. And Dr. Adego is not only just a presenter. I'm proud to tell you that she's our very own from the National Open University of Nigeria. Not only from National Open University of Nigeria, she is from my department and faculty. So you can see how we are very, very connected. And I've been disturbing her. Come and tell us something about your discipline, your specialization that we want to know. And she has agreed. And we are very thankful to her for agreeing to come to present to us on this platform. And let me tell you briefly about her. She has her 1st degree in veterinary medicine and master's degree in veterinary public health from that prestigious University of Ibadan, Nigeria. She began her lecturing career in the Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Department of Physiology, Delta State, where she had her master's and doctorate degrees in physiology. You can see that she's a bookworm. The masters are just flowing side by side. Her area of specialization is gastrointestinal physiology. She has spent over 12 years in Delta State University before she came to join us in this prestigious university, National Open University of Nigeria. While in Delta State, she held various administrative positions, and she was the Deputy Director, Institute of Science, Laboratory Technology, and also the head of Department of Physiology for 3 years. So you will see we have a big woman before us here. So we should be happy that she's here to share knowledge with us. She joined National Open University just in 2020, December. And she's currently lecturing at the Department of Public Health, Faculty of Health Sciences, National Open University of Nigeria, as I've said before. And she is a member of many academic societies, amongst which is the Physiological Society of Nigeria and Veterinary Society of Nigeria, to mention a few. And she is happily married with children. I'm excited. Her topic today says the role of migration in health and zoonosis. We soon unravel what that role is. She's going to tell us about it. So join me to welcome Dr. Adego. You are very much welcome to this platform, and we are all eager to learn from you. Thank you so much for being here for us. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, I'd like to say a very, very big thank you to the Director, Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Gloria Aneto, for giving me this privilege to make this presentation. When Prof said I should come, when she said I should come and make this presentation, I said, I tried to give her so many reasons why I did not want to make the presentation, but Prof said you must come and make the presentation. So thank you so much, Ma, for the privilege to make this presentation. I say good afternoon again to everybody in attendance, my senior colleagues in attendance, the professors, the emeritus, the professors, my colleagues, fellow colleagues, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen who are joining this presentation today. As Prof has said, without much ado, I'm just going to share my screen so they can see my slides, and I'll go straight to the presentation for today. The topic of my presentation today is the role of migration in health and zoonoses. This is going to be my outline for the presentation. I'm going to have a brief introduction. I'll be talking about migration and health, the One Health concept and its relevance to zoonoses. Now, migration is the seasonal movement of humans, animals, birds from one region to another. It is not a new concept. People have moved from one place to the other through history, and so it is a basic element of population dynamics. Now, the reasons why people move or why they migrate have been studied for decades. And as a result of a number of scientific literature has identified a number of fundamental reasons, which they call migration drivers. Why do people migrate? And such include things like economic, political, social, cultural, and demographic factors. World polls suggest that more than 750 million adults would like to migrate if they have the chance to. So that means that globally, 1 in every 8 adults expresses a desire to migrate. As I said in the previous slide, I said previously, a number of studies came up as to reasons why people migrate. So there are diverse reasons why people migrate. And in that line, there are also diverse classifications of migration. I'm just going to run through a few So you have the international migration, and that's, of course, migrating from one country to the other. The United Nations recommends, has adduced a definition for international migration, focusing on residence and the time, and has defined a migrant as a person who moves from their country of usual residence, who moves from their country of usual residence for a period of at least 12 months. You also have internal migration. These are people that move within a country or within a continent. There's no movement across. And so approximately 40% of urban growth in Asia, Africa, Latin America accounts for internal migration. And of course, there's movement from rural to urban areas for obvious reasons, greener pastures, better source of living in particular. It's been said that from 2014 to 2050, that the proportion of people living in urban areas, largely as a result of migration from rural areas, is expected to increase from 48% to 64% in Asia, and from 40% to 56% in Africa. That's our own continent. So it's important to us too. You also have labor migration. That's one classification of migration. In which here you have the migrant workers are male. You have more males migrating, have about 56% as compared to female migrants. And then you also have forced migration. As at 2016, 2 billion people live in countries affected by civil unrest or ongoing conflict. Of course, as we know, with the current war that is raging between Ukraine and Russia, when the war started, a lot of the Nigerians in diaspora relocated from home. So they were forced to migrate. They didn't plan on migrating, but as a result of the unrest, civil unrest going on, they had to migrate. That's an example of course, forced migration. This is just a chart showing top 20 countries of origin and destination. This was a chart got from 2020. So that was about a little over 2 years ago. And top of the list from country of origin for migration was the United States. Of course, this analysis or this survey was done in the year 2020, and that was in the heart of the COVID. So we know that a lot of people were migrating trying to migrate then out of the United States of America. And also the graph on the left shows the countries of origin of migration, while the graph on the right shows the countries of origin of destination, countries that people were migrating to. Recently, we had, I listened to a webinar also on this forum. It was on the Japa syndrome, movement of people living from Nigeria out of, so moving from out of Nigeria to other countries for greener pastures. And so why there is there is a supposed guilt of movement from, because I said there are a lot of reasons why people migrate. Better job opportunities, which of course it's what is going around now in the country. So there's the tilt from movement from Nigeria, movement out of Nigeria. But then also, I also joined I was in observation that he was in a plane, and that a lot of the passengers, of course, he was on about the flight bound in Nigeria, an African bound flight. So of course, heading to Nigeria actually, and stopped by in one of the African countries. And he said that interestingly, a lot of the passengers, I think he said, want to put like a conservative number, more than half of the passengers were actually white. So it's also an interesting tilt. So white people are moving out, some people are also moving in. And then in this movement, of course, it comes with its own attendant issues, as we shall see later. This is also a chart, a graph just showing us statistics of migrants to Africa, within Africa, and from Africa. The chart in the middle here shows migrants within Africa. And of course, there was an increase from 1990 to 2020 when this survey was also taken. This chart shows migrants from Africa. So of course, also from 1990 to 2020, there's an obvious increase in people migrating from Africa. There's all just a chart showing annual new developments as a result of displacement. As I explained, forced migration, it could be as a result of conflict or disaster, humans that migrate. Birds also migrate, animals also migrate for obvious reasons. Birds migrate and then animals migrate. So in talking about migration of birds migration occurs, it's driven by the need to acquire seasonally available food resources to take care of activities such as molting or breeding, as well as trying to avoid stressful conditions, such as adverse weather conditions, reduced food availability. And then migratory birds, especially water birds, are a natural reservoir of avian influenza virus. They carry and exchange different virus strains along their migration routes, leading to viral reassortment and emergence of the novel, highly pathogenic avian influenza. Now, in talking about the avian influenza virus, it's also a virus that is of importance, of public health importance. This lecture, it's also concerned about zoonoses. And then these migratory birds, you know, they carry and they exchange different strains, and this has led to the emergence of this avian influenza, highly pathogenic avian influenza virus. This virus is of public health importance because it can wipe out poultry farms, and this can lead to economic losses. And also, it can also infect human beings. It can also infect human beings. The strain, there are various types of strain. You have the H5, H7, H9. The H7 is actually is highly virulent and has been indicated in affecting, serve as reservoirs of zoonotic enteropathogens. So when birds migrate across national and intercontinental borders, they become long-range vectors for any bacteria, virus, parasite, or drug-resistant organisms. Now, one of the largest bird migration system, it's from Africa to Europe, and you know, so these birds migrate, and then in the course of migration, they could acquire infectious or contagious pathogens, as well as maybe viral parasites that could also parasite on them in the course of migrating. And then they are migrating from, as I said, the one of largest bird migration system is from Africa to Europe. So they are migrating from Africa. They are carrying whatever pathogens that they have come across, or they have come in contact, and then they are migrating and they carry them to their destination country, in this case, in Europe. So in this case, they are also serving as reservoirs for pathogens. Now, it's been known that some species of birds, in particular the crows, the seagulls, they have an affinity for sewage and as well as refuse dumps, such that when you collect their intestines, find out that there are a lot of enteropathogens contained in there, in particular salmonellosis. So you also have Salmonella typhimurium. That is the most commonly reported enteric pathogen of the wild birds. And humans have contracted salmonellosis from wild birds via contact with contaminated bird feeders. So while this is also implicated, as I said, if it occurs, it could wipe out the poultry population. So it is highly contagious, and humans have contracted this disease from wild birds via contact with their contaminated bird feeders. It has also been postulated that sparrows and other birds that nest or forage around farm buildings can also be a source of infection for poultry and other commercial operations. Now, not only do birds also migrate, animals also migrate, and in doing that also, they tend to also they also move from one geographic location to the other, and in doing that, they are also spreading pathogens, which could also be zoonotic pathogens as in the course of movement. And bear in mind that, of course, the animals are in contact with these humans, so they could pass on these pathogens to the humans. Of importance are some zoonotic diseases that we know. There's the Ebola virus in bats. I just talked about the avian influenza virus, and also there's the Ebola. We shall talk about that a little more in the course of this presentation. Then another topic of importance is migration and health. So why do people migrate? We have just talked about the reasons why people migrate. But then in migrating, human beings are migrating, the animals are migrating, the birds are migrating. What is the health? What is the health status of these migrants, if I should put it that way? Now, health can be defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just merely the absence of disease or infirmity. A good state of health is usually a fundamental prerequisite for a migrant. Now, this chart in front of me just shows, at the basis, that is, of course, the well-being, health and well-being of people and populations. And then, of course, for there to be outbreak of diseases, there has to be the presence of contagious pathogens, as well as susceptible hosts. And for the transmission of this disease to occur or to happen, it is also dependent on the health status, as well as the immunity state of host population, whether it's the human population or the animal population. So in migration, the health status is also important. One health concept and zoonoses. The concept of One Health is actually important because it brings to bear the relevance of the relevance of zoonoses. So there is a One Health is actually a collaborative global approach that has to do with understanding the risks of for human and animal health, including both domestic animals, wildlife animals, and ecology and ecosystem. So human health and animal health are interdependent, and they are also they are ultimately dependent also on the ecosystem as a whole. Humans, animals, and the environment play a significant role in the emergence and the transmission of different infectious diseases. About 60% of emerging human infections are zoonotic in nature. And among these pathogens, more than 70% originated from wildlife species. So you see that animals, wildlife species are also very, very important. Any disease or infection that is naturally transmissible from vertebrate animals to humans or humans to animals is known as zoonoses. So that is the World Health Classification for zoonoses. Any disease or any infection that is naturally transmissible from vertebrate animals to humans or from humans to animals. And among the human pathogens, 61 are zoonotic in nature. This is quite remarkable. Based on their etiology, zoonoses could be classified into bacterial zoonoses. Of examples are which there's salmonellosis, there's tuberculosis. You have viral zoonoses, the Ebola, the avian influenza virus, rabies. These are all examples of viral zoonoses. You also have parasitic zoonoses, toxoplasmosis, trichinosis. You also have fungal zoonoses such as the ringworm. You have chlamydial zoonoses. You have psittacosis. This is implicated in birds, especially in parrots, for those who keep parrots too. And they also have the mycoplasma zoonoses, like the mycoplasma pneumonia. You also have some protozoa zoonoses. These are just to mention just a few. One Health, still on One Health, the concept of One Health and its relevance to zoonoses. Some reports have suggested that animals could also get infected from humans. So the ideal thing for zoonoses is the transmission from animals to humans. But then some reports have also suggested that some animals could also get infected from humans. And such diseases are known as reverse zoonoses. You also have some diseases known as emerging zoonoses. Now, what are these emerging zoonoses? And these are newly recognized, newly evolved, or that have occurred previously, but then they are showing an increase in the incidence in geographical regions. And examples of such emerging zoonoses include avian influenza. There are a lot of them. You have the rabies, avian influenza virus. You also have multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, just to mention a few. You also have, of course, the SARS, that's the severe acute respiratory syndrome virus, the COVID virus. This is just a table showing us some examples of the reverse zoonoses. These are the agents, the human disease, how the human disease, of course, the presentation in humans, the animal disease, the presentation in animals, and then the animals that are affected. And examples include the mumps virus, the infectious hepatitis virus, you have the Corynebacterium diphtheria virus, you have the Staph aureus, you have, these are bacteria, you also have Mycobacterium tuberculosis. This is of importance because as we shall see later, I talked about movement migration, animal migration, the reason why people move for obvious reasons. Then also back here, we have migration, the nomads, those who move from one place, carrying their cattle, their cows, from one location or the other in search of pastures, in search of food, availability of food, dependent on the season, dry season or the rainy season. And these people in migrating, these herdsmen, they coexist with their animals. And so there could be reverse zoonosis, maybe from the herdsmen to the animals, to the cattle, and then back to the humans again, the herdsmen. The concept of One Health is important and plays a major role in trying to address emerging and re-emerging zoonoses. And it also is important because it helps to control the effect of zoonotic diseases amongst humans, animals, as well as environmental components. It also helps to make the world free from threats of zoonotic diseases. This picture, just in a nutshell, captures the importance and the relevance of the One Health concept and zoonoses. So you can see the human health, you can see the animal health, and you can see the, you can also see the environment. Now, as a result of urbanization, there has been a disruption in the normal human-animal environmental interface. The human health as well as the animal health are all interdependent on the ecosystem, which is on the environment. So this is just like, you can say like, it's a bubble, this is a bubble, so this is the niche. The environment, the human health, and the animal health. And there are a lot of reasons why there has been a disruption in this human-animal environment interface. This has, for a number of reasons. There's intensive livestock farming and agriculture, increased human encroachment into the wildlife habitat, increased human encroachment into wildlife habitat as a result of increased population explosion. Then also, of course, increase in international travels, and all these have contributed in disrupting this human-animal interface, environment interface. So it shows that the humans they don't live in isolation, as well as the animals, and then even the environment, they're all intertwined in the concept of zoonosis. This is a picture of one of an emerging zoonotic infection. So initially, the nomenclature that was given to it was the monkeypox virus because of it was reported to be endemic in West Africa and Central Africa. And then also this, but over time, the World Health Organization changed the nomenclature from monkeypox to mpox to prevent stigmatization, because the host agent was known to be, the monkeys, and hence the initial name, the monkeypox. So you can see here, you have the human, you have the monkeys, the primates, which was where the initial virus was isolated from. But then other animals have also been implicated. So you have the rodents, you have the arboreal rodents, like the squirrels. And of course, as I said, as a result of urbanization, there has been encroachment. So even these ones, these animals, normally, when you have them even in the wildlife, but because of encroachment as a result of movement, there has been a further, the environment has been brought closer to humans. So this is just an example of what the presentation looks like. You have pustules, just like presentation of smallpox in humans. So this is just what it looks like. You have the pustules. So that's the mpox or the monkeypox. This also shows a picture depicting endemic settings and non-endemic settings. So it also has to do with the issue of zoonoses. How does it come about? You have here at the base of it travel, and then you have the non-endemic areas, and these are non-endemic settings. What are the things that could predispose? For example, you have clothing or you have surfaces that have been contaminated with any of these pathogens. So, or you also have nosocomial infections, that's from humans to humans infection, as you can see in this case. But these are in non-endemic settings. Then in endemic settings, you also have, of course, still the humans, and they also have the positive agents or whatever it's predisposing to this. This is also related to monkeypox virus or the mpox virus. This is another important zoonotic disease of public health concern, is the Ebola virus disease. And it was known to be, the fruit bats thought to be the hosts, causative host agents. And as you can see in this diagram, you also have the monkeys, you have the chimpanzees, you have the donkeys, and then you have the human again at the interface. You have the human here again at the interface, and then, so these humans, it depends on what they are exposed to. This is a nurse or a caregiver treating, and then of course, not properly kitted, so be exposed to blood fluids, contaminated blood or body fluids, the same here, and also the same here. Another important condition is also known as tuberculosis. It's also of great zoonotic importance too. It is caused by, in animals, in the cattle, it's caused by, it's known as bovine tuberculosis, caused by the bacterium, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, or M. bovis. And then in this case, it could also be transmitted, contracted by humans. In fact, it's been said that about 5 to 10% of human tuberculosis are caused by M. bovis infection. And as I said, this can be seen in a lot of our herdsmen when they coexist. They are with their cattle, and then this is one of the conditions that could be prevalent in their niche. Now, the spread and the outbreak of the avian influenza virus has increased as a result of global trade, has also increased poultry production, bird migration, human movement, and human infections also. Recommendation: you could have laws to prevent different animal species mixing. You could also help to improve animal health on farms by limiting the stocking density to avoid overcrowding. You could also ensure high standards of veterinary care, as well as shifting to plant-based foods. You should also, you could also be strategies to help preventive strategies to help the efficient control of avian influenza viruses. You could also have sanitary, environmental sanitation to help reduce exposure to infectious agents by limiting contacts to waste or polluted media, and also by ensuring changing the hygiene and the social cultural practices. In conclusion, migration is a global phenomenon. It enhances and influences the health of individuals and population. Policies to protect migrants and public health should also be put in place, and they should also be made to be effective by trying to address the multiple phases of the migration process. With this, I have come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for making that presentation snappy. We really appreciate your presentation and the exposition of knowledge. Thank you so much. Let me just start by welcoming some of our senior colleagues who came in while you were presenting. Professor Oba Abdallah, our former VC, you are welcome, sir. Emeritus Professor Sogolo, and then we have Professor Monioluwa Olaniyi, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Technology, Innovation, and Research, who is also on this platform, and many others that I may not have called right now. You are all highly welcome. I think we have listened to our presenter. So as usual, Professor Oba Abdallah has his hands up, so I'll allow him to speak while I'll take others as they come. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone, especially the grand old man. I'm glad to see he's still there by his window every day, contemplating about dead white philosophers. So good afternoon, sir. Now, part of the reason why I quickly raised my hand was because at 1 o'clock, I have another presentation to make at the University of Bayreuth in Germany. And I'm the speaker there. So that's why I want to make it very snappy. And I'm glad. I mean, Dr. Adego, you are just wonderful. You are the only person who has presented in 45 minutes in the last 1 year. I mean, normally people just keep going on, rambling on and on and on and on, direct to the point. So I'll also be direct to the point. My observation or question is,
yes, sir.
What you have actually presented to us, to me, is dangerous. Very, very dangerous, because it means that we are not safe. We're in danger. This is because all these animals and things like that are migrating without any border control, and they are bringing all sorts of horrible things that we don't know. And we are also part of that problem. You travel to America or to England and you go with cola nut, for God's sake. You finish eating that cola nut and then you throw away the remnant, not knowing that it contains some horrible invasive bacteria or something like that that could affect not only the wildlife, but also the plant growth in that particular area. So my question to you as a point for to ponder, to think about, how can we know which particular animals bring about their horrible diseases so that we can control them? I mean, it's not enough to just simply say rats are there and people eat rats and all that. But if there are animals that bring in an invasive bacteria that they don't know they carry because they're just vectors, how do we identify these kind of animals? What sort of health warning can we give out to the communities so that they can report? Like in the US, I know that the moment they see a particular lichen hanging on a particular tree, they will begin to say, this is an invasive species. So wherever you see it, uproot it, burn it, or whatever it is. So for animals that migrate without any border, without any visa, without any payment or anything, how can we identify what categories of animals should we watch out for, should be careful about, so that the moment we see a particular animal in the environment, we know that this animal is dangerous, this animal is a potential vector for a horrible disease that we don't even know. So that's my question. Yes, animals migrate, but how do we know the type of animal that migrate and the migratory trajectory, the migratory pattern, so that we can prevent horrible communicable diseases in our community? And once more, thank you very much. Very brilliant, very sharp, to the point. I love it. If I'm evaluating all the presentations, this is the best, A++.
So we clap for Dr. Adego for being the best presenter according to our media. Thank you, Dr. Adego, for that brilliant performance. And of course, Emeritus Professor has his hands up. Over to you, sir.
I think, again, let me seize this opportunity to congratulate Professor, former VC Professor Abdallah Ubadamu for, setting up this center. Because you see, it's every time I listen to a paper from a different direction, it enriches my understanding of what migration means. In fact, this presentation today really tells me that the very concept of migration is so wide that you sometimes, what she has said now is to show that the concept is also as applicable to animals as it is to human beings. And the question I was really going to ask is this: the dangers that she has pointed out, are they not also applicable to human beings who migrate? Because you see, sometimes we move from our own environment to other environment. Are there no diseases that we carry across? Now, how does your own study of animals, of what the dangers of animals, the diseases that transpire, that move from one community to another, how does that affect the human beings? I mean, is there any parallel that you draw between what your findings about animals and what is likely to apply to human beings? All right. I just want to say whether there are, theories, which simply say that what you have in A, animals, also apply to B, humans. That's the only question. I must confess that I only listened to a part of it, and it was very exciting. I want to congratulate you for a very brilliant presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Looks like I can't see more hands up, but before I allow the presenter to respond to those. Okay, Professor Monioluwalani, over to you. Sorry.
Thank you very much, ma. Director, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to say something. I want to also give my regards to Emeritus Professor Sogolo sir and our former Vice Chancellor, Professor Ubadam. Good afternoon, everyone. I actually want to say something so that when the director sees me in the next meeting we'll be having this afternoon, she will not query me because she will ask me why I did not say anything. That's on a lighter mood. But I want to commend Dr. Adego for the presentation. I am a plant pathologist, specifically a nematologist. And I know that in quarantine services, there are quarantine pests. And that's why cross-border movements of plant materials and products are always subject to evaluation at the borders or at the airports and things like that. So when Professor Adamu mentioned how to identify pests, animals that are vectors of pests and the like, I thought I should just mention it, except probably in livestock health and vet, there is nothing like that. Otherwise, I know with plants, there are quarantine pests that are identified. So if you have any product that will likely, carry this pest at the border, these materials are constrained. They are collected and they're checked. If you are traveling to another country with plant materials for probably research, you must have clearance before you are able to take them across border. These are quarantine procedures that are available. And I know for whatever you are moving across borders, there are quarantine procedures. I just thought to mention that. And I know that Dr. Adego will give us clearer view about this with livestock. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. So now we've got 3 people. Well, let me just add, mine is just to say that I enjoyed every part of the presentation, but I observed that maybe I didn't get it. Like there was no definition of zoonosis.
No,
so some
I
people may not actually know if they are not in the sciences, they may not definition. So I would want to advise Dr. Adego to please remember to define zoonosis at the beginning of the lecture. You will answer us at the end where we finish. It's just my thinking. Maybe I missed it, but I was saying I didn't hear that definition. Then I also want to say that you know, it's a good thing you showed the animal diseases and then animal and man. Maybe the linkage, maybe whether there's a direct host or an intermediary host in the paper, because we will expect you to write up this paper for possible publication in our journal after a thorough peer review. So I would want to advise that in that paper, you may make it clear if it's directly we touch those animals that we get infected or there are intermediaries, so that like Professor Adala was saying, it means we are all in trouble and in danger. Maybe it's not really as bad as we may be thinking, though there's need to take caution. And I also want to explain that One Health is just the way to go for this control, like she has already mentioned in her paper, that yes, when One Health is taken as the main thing, then the spread vis-a-vis animal, human, and environment will be highly controlled. That is where we need to look at. And I don't know, even though she didn't stress it so much, I know she must have mentioned Lassa fever, which is endemic right now in our country, and we are not realizing it, as well as the monkeypox. Those two are the main diseases right now that the NCDC is battling with for our country, the monkeypox and the Lassa fever, and of course they have zoonotic origin. But are they direct? Is there an intermediary? What can be done to prevent them? I think all those things, try to elaborate them in her paper. Having said that, I will give her opportunity to respond to these comments and questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Director Professor Aneto. Thank you very much, Igima. I also want to thank my professors in the house, Professor Uba Adamu for his first question, Professor Sololo, and then also Professor Olaniyi. Okay, let me start from, I don't know how we'll take the questions now. Okay, so let me start from what Professor Adamu's question, that how do we identify animals that are sick? Just as Professor Olaniyi has said, in terms of environment, so just also like, okay, so we also have the quarantine sections whereby animals that are brought in or animals that are going out will have to be quarantined for a period of time. And then during that period, they're supposed to be observed for certain clinical conditions. You take their temperature, you look out for nasal discharges, any form of discharges, because any form of discharge will be indicative of what is going on internally. So these are ways we can identify you. We just don't move the animals. Ideally, if you want to follow things properly, you just cannot take animals and you will need to quarantine them. For example, if you want to even take your travel out with your pets, a lot of people have their dogs, for example, or their cats, and we know that there are some zoonotic diseases that are transmitted between cats and of course within humans. So you cannot just carry out these animals like that. You have to obtain a proper of course, one of the criteria that you must show the vaccination certificate, especially in terms of dogs, and they must also, having gone through the checks, they will then be issued a proper quarantine certificate to attest to the health status of the animals. And then also in talking about dangers, Professor Sogolo's question, dangers from humans to animals. Prof, sorry, sir, please could you say your question again, sir? I know you mentioned something about humans and animals and then the danger. Professor Sogolo,
So,
sir.
no, I was trying to say whether any of the conclusions you arrive at in your studies of animals is applicable to humans.
Yes, sir. Okay, all right, sir. So
yeah, this is, whether your findings in about animals is also applicable about human beings.
Yes, sir.
In terms of migration, in relation to migration.
Okay, in relation to migration, yes, sir. Okay, well, of course, in migration, I will give a classical example, as I said, in course of my study. Migrating, for example, the nomads that migrate with their cattle from, so ideally, the type of the species of bacteria you have in animals that is causing bovine tuberculosis in animals. As I said, about 5 to 10% have been identified through research over time in humans. Okay. So that shows that there's actually a cross. And the basic thing here is that there's really no difference between the human species and the animal species. That's why, because the key thing there is, what is the basic physiology? Their physiologies are related. So what can affect the animals can also equally affect the humans. I don't know if that explains.
But the same in terms of the same diseases that you're talking about.
Yes, sir. In terms of the same diseases, basically, yes, sir.
Okay.
Because the lesions that will, for example, in this classical case, the lesions that you would see in the human lungs are also interestingly, sir, also the lesions you also see also in the animal lungs. It's basic because of the causative bacteria. They are encapsulated. So these are the lesions you actually see presented. So yes, sir, it is. Okay. And then the last stage about Professor Olani actually mentioned about quarantine, which I said is also it's also practiced too. Ideally, they should also have ports, even the seaports, interstate. They also have some interstate quarantine sections. And of course, at the airports too. So ideally, you just cannot carry these animals out without passing them through these checks. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I don't know if I've done enough.
Yes, thank you so much. I think you have attempted to answer those questions. Just to add to it, a little to it, from my own knowledge, Professor Sogolo was asking whether the same thing affects humans. I want to let you know that it's because the significance of animals to humans, the relationship, the possible link is why for trials in the laboratories, they use animals, not humans direct. Because once they see the reaction of particular drugs or any event in the animal, how it is happening, it is likely that it will also happen like that in the humans. So in the laboratories, you see they are using rats, all those who work on, Dr. Adego, am I right? I know that you do much of a laboratory research than some of us who do the prevention by talking a lot. Those who work in the lab, they use animals, and it's because there is a connection between humans and animals.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you very much.
So,
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So maybe Dr. Adego will add that part to it so that people like Prof, who are not in the public health or sciences, will flow very well when they read that paper. So these are all to help you to improve on your paper. Thank you so much. And I don't know, my other colleagues are here, but they are quiet. They leave this question and answer to professors alone, and it shouldn't be a professor thing. It is everybody. So I hope we will try to ask questions when we are here, because it's very interesting. But today the house is not full. But we thank God for this little we have been able to do. And I really want to thank the speaker, the presenter, in a very special way, because like it was said, the presentation was quite short and apt, but direct to the point, and we have been able to gain one or two things, I believe. And we thank God for the time being here. It's not wasted. And I want to also use this opportunity to tell us that the next time we shall be presenting, it will be a symposium. So we have a whole lot of 3 speakers that will be here to address a particular issue which we shall be exposing to you maybe in the next 1 week thereabout. So we say symposium, and it's going to be our first symposium for the year 2023. Of course, it's virtual, but we'll have speakers from all over, not only from Nigeria, who will be addressing us, and it's going to be an interesting one. So we look forward to it, but that will be for the month of 26th of April. After which, let me make this announcement in the air now. We shall now be doing a monthly presentation by popular demand. So thereafter, the month of May, it will be 1 presentation, and that will go through the year. Except there's any reason for us to come back again, then we shall now be communicating to you. But for now, we are going to be engaged with a monthly presentation after now. That is from May. But in the next 2 weeks, which is still in April, we are going to have a symposium, and then bye-bye to bi-monthly presentation, just to tell you ahead of time. So we look forward to the next presentation, and we thank you. And Professor and Dr. Adego, well, I'm calling you Professor because I know you are a potential prof anyway. Professor Adego, go ahead and give us your last word as a presenter for today. Thank you.
Once again, I want to say a very big thank you to Professor Aneto for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation on this platform. As I said, when Prof said I should make the presentation, I developed cold feet, but Prof was insistent. I want to say a big thank you, ma. I also want to say a very big thank you to all the professors who have made their constructive contributions by answering questions, which when I'm doing the final write-up, I'll expatiate more, and so I can make the article a better one. I'm grateful to Professor Uba Adamu, to Professor Sogolo, and also to Professor Olaniyi, and to everybody who has taken out time from their tight schedule to attend this presentation. Thank you very much. And as Professor Sogolo said, it's this I have attended a couple of presentation on this platform, and honestly, it's really been very, very enlightening. It's been an eye-opener. So I also want to thank Professor Uba Adamu for the initiative he took to set this up, and also to appreciate our Vice Chancellor, Professor Peters, for also sustaining this vision. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And we hope when we call on you again, you will not develop cold feet, but come around. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your presence, for your contributions. And on this note, I want to say a big bye-bye till 2 weeks time when we shall be having our symposium, God willing. Thank you and God bless. Bye-bye.